The war is exploding on land, but the global shock could come from the sea. 20% of the world's oil passes through a corridor barely 4 miles wide, and right now that corridor sits at the edge of a war zone. Will China step in or stay in the shadows? The answer may depend on a missile deal that has not been signed yet. On February 28th, a coordinated military operation targeting Iranian sites was reported by Reuters. According to dispatches published that day, US and Israeli aircraft struck a range of targets, including command facilities and nuclear infrastructure, with the operation described by Israeli officials as closely coordinated with Washington. Reuters' coverage relied on statements from unnamed officials and official press releases, noting that damage assessments could not be independently confirmed. Photographs circulated of smoke rising over Tehran, yet the full extent of the impact inside Iran remained contested. Shortly after these strikes, Iranian state media broadcast footage of missile launches described as a retaliatory response. Multiple outlets, citing Reuters, reported that ballistic missiles were fired toward locations in Israel and across the Gulf, including the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Bahrain. The number of missiles and the resulting casualties were marked as unverified, with Reuters repeating that independent observers had not confirmed the figures released by local authorities. In the hours that followed, confusion spread as some Iranian officials announced the death of the supreme leader, while opposition sources disputed the claim. Reuters issued a fact check the next day, clarifying that no independent verification of his death had emerged. Panic and uncertainty swept through Iranian cities. Reuters described scenes of civilian evacuations, internet outages, and a Red Crescent report of casualties, again cautioning that these numbers could not be independently confirmed. Global reaction was swift. Statements from Russia, China, and the European Union called for restraint, warning that further escalation could destabilize the region. For those living and working near the Gulf, these events had immediate consequences. A tanker captain, quoted in a Reuters business update, described holding position outside the Strait of Hormuz, waiting for instructions as insurance premiums spiked overnight. In Bandar Abbas, a port worker recounted to a local journalist how shifts were suddenly suspended, and families gathered at the docks, uncertain whether it was safe to return home. The sense of unpredictability extended far beyond the battlefield. With each reported strike or retaliatory launch, the risk to vital shipping lanes grew less theoretical. As the world watched for the next move, attention shifted to the narrow corridor at the heart of global energy flows, the Strait of Hormuz, where even the perception of danger could trigger a chain reaction in shipping, insurance, and naval patrols long before any missile found its mark. The Strait of Hormuz is less a passageway and more a funnel, narrowing global energy flows to a pair of 2 nautical mile lanes separated by a 1 nautical mile buffer. These are not just lines on a chart, they are hard boundaries enforced by the International Maritime Organization's traffic separation scheme. Every oil tanker, bulk carrier, and container ship must file into these corridors, keeping to the right and reporting their position every 15 nautical miles. At the strait's tightest point, there is no room to improvise. The water is deep enough for only a single file of the largest ships, with shoals and strong currents closing off escape to the south. To the north, the Iranian coastline is close enough that radar, drones, or small patrol boats can monitor every vessel that enters or leaves the Gulf. This predictability is not a technical detail, it is the core of the problem. When every ship must follow the same path, risk becomes easy to map. Adversaries do not need to guess where a target will be, they only need to wait. Recent nav area warnings have forced merchant captains to deviate from the official lanes during live fire exercises, sometimes pushing ships closer together and increasing the risk of collision. One captain described in a Lloyd's Market bulletin how a routine deviation for a missile drill left his tanker exposed with insurance coverage in doubt and no clear instructions from port authorities. Insurers in London now flag Hormuz as a zone where premiums can spike by 45% overnight, simply on news of a new missile test or a credible threat bulletin. Even before a missile is launched, the logic of the chokepoint changes how people act. Captains anchor outside the strait, waiting for naval escorts or for risk assessments to shift. Some request high-speed transits, burning extra fuel to minimize time in the danger zone. Others delay cargoes, accepting financial penalties, rather than gamble with a ship's safety. The result is a slow-motion cascade. As perceived risk rises, the world's most important oil highway clogs, and global markets feel the effect long before any attack occurs. The geometry of Hormuz means that technology, missiles, drones, and surveillance matter most where ships have the least freedom to maneuver. Predictability becomes vulnerability. This is why every rumor of a new weapon, every change in naval posture, and every insurer's advisory can move markets and alter shipping patterns in real time, even if the strait remains physically open. On February 24th, Reuters reported Iran is nearing a deal for Chinese CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles. 6 sources described the agreement as nearing completion, though no official word has come from Tehran or Beijing. The significance is not in the paperwork, but in what these missiles could mean for the Strait of Hormuz. The CM-302, a supersonic sea skimmer, reaches speeds up to Mach 2.5 in its export version. At that pace, a missile fired from Iran's coast could cross 200 kilometers in less than 2.5 minutes. The real pressure comes at the end. Flying just 5 meters above the water, a sea skimmer like the CM-302 is only detectable by shipboard radar at about 20 kilometers out. That leaves a detection window of roughly 20 seconds before impact. In the tight corridors of Hormuz, where tankers and warships are confined to narrow lanes, this shrinking window means less time to spot, track, and intercept. The defensive bubble around US and allied ships contracts. Escorts that once could patrol 30 kilometers ahead now need to be within 10 kilometers to have any chance of intercepting a missile before it hits. This forced proximity increases risk for every vessel and complicates convoy planning. But a missile alone does not guarantee a threat. Turning hardware into operational reality demands what planners call the kill chain: detect, track, queue, launch, and saturate. First, coastal ISR units must spot a target. Tracking data then needs to reach the launch crew in real time. The missile battery is queued with precise coordinates. Only then does the launch happen, ideally as a coordinated volley to saturate defenses. Each step relies on sensors, communications, and trained operators under pressure. Iran does not need perfection, just enough credibility to make US commanders and ship owners assume the risk is real. That uncertainty alone can shift naval deployments, insurance rates, and shipping schedules before a single missile is fired. China's response to the Iran crisis hinges on 4 scenarios, each carrying distinct signals and consequences. The most probable path is non-intervention. Beijing repeats calls for mutual security and stability, while the People's Liberation Army Navy quietly maintains its escort missions for Chinese-flagged ships. This mirrors earlier PLAN deployments in the Gulf of Aden and the 2020 Sudan evacuation, visible but never confrontational. Chinese diplomats stick to familiar language, and naval patrols follow established routes, offering reassurance to shipping insurers and commodity traders who track every word and movement. A second scenario unfolds in the shadows. China offers Iran logistical support, satellite data, or technical expertise, but avoids open military aid. Evidence surfaces in the form of specialized shipments arriving at Bandar Abbas, or reports of joint naval exercises that stop short of live fire drills. Insurers and traders watch for sudden changes, a cluster of tankers idling offshore, or a spike in war risk premiums flagged by a Lloyd's underwriter in London after rumors of Chinese technical teams in Iran. For a convoy master, a subtle change in routing instructions can signal new risks before official statements ever do. Diplomatic posturing forms the third scenario. Beijing positions itself as a mediator, proposing multilateral talks or frameworks for Gulf security. The shift is clear in official language, moving from generic restraint to pointed criticism of US actions, or calls for international monitoring. Commodity markets react instantly to any sign China is leveraging its influence over oil flows or insurance rates. A single advisory from the Lloyd's Market Association can triple premiums overnight, while a rumor of missile delivery can leave tankers anchored for days. Direct confrontation remains least likely. RAND and CSIS estimate less than a 5% chance of overt PLA combat unless Chinese nationals or energy lifelines are threatened. Only unmistakable signs, PLAN warships maneuvering against a US carrier group, or China invoking collective security at the UN, would mark this escalation. 3 signals matter most: confirmed delivery or training milestones, shifts in naval posture, and changes in China's diplomatic language. Each ripples outward, shaping decisions from London's insurance desks to the daily routines of Gulf port workers. As reported by Reuters, every escalation near the Strait of Hormuz sends ripples far beyond its narrow lanes. Today, even the perception of new missile threats can shift global energy flows and military planning. China probably will not join the war, but it may still rewrite the price of war in the world's most dangerous choke point.